Welcome to the Busy Signal. My name is Jim, and this is my retrostalgic 80s, 90s, and early 2000s podcast. This show aims to salute all the stuff from back in the day that is now extinct or quickly going that way. In the 33 episodes I've done this show, we've covered a ton of nostalgic ground. Extinct foods, tech, experiences, movie rewatches, and a bunch more, with plenty to come, by the way. But for this episode, we're going to remember something a little different. Words and phrases. Things we'd say that were so common back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, and are just irrelevant now. Or the words and phrases from back in the day that we still use, but just not in exactly the same way. So let's take a journey and see what's changed in our verbiage over the last, 40 years. This should be interesting. Don't touch that dial. The first and most obvious phrase that comes to mind is hang up the phone, or any similar derivative like I hung up the phone, they hung up the phone, please hang up the phone, I'll hang up on you. You get the point. That. The simple fact is we don't really hang up phones anymore, and we haven't for a pretty long time at this point. We use cell phones, or if we're at home, maybe we're using a cordless phone, in which you're pressing a button and that ends the call. We're not hanging up phones. Maybe you have a phone at work that you still hang up. Nothing compares to hanging up a rotary phone. I showed them. So satisfying. Another phrase that strikes me kind of funny is when people say, I filmed something, or I taped it. I've got it on film.
You're looking at a snapshot that could only have been taken by one company, Sony. We've created a miraculous little video camera, the Sony Handycam, a completely different way to take movies. Light and easy as a still camera, yet can give you 2 hours of incredible sight and sound. So why just take snapshots when you can take moving snapshots? Take home a Sony Handycam and turn any TV set into a photo album.
When's the last time anybody used film or tape to record something? But we all know what it means, and we accept it, even though it's not 100% correct anymore. I just find it interesting how the way we do things has changed pretty drastically, yet we still use outdated verbiage to describe it. Because taping or filming something back in the day required tape or film, and not having enough tape or film or running out of those materials was a big pain back in the day. But video recording storage is basically limitless at this point. You're not taping or filming something, you're recording it into a data file, and that gets stored on a hard drive, essentially. There's no tapes, there's no film, but we still tape and film things, I guess. So I'm going to bend the rules a little bit for this one. It's more of a visual than it is a word or a phrase, but it's in the ballpark. It's definitely in the conversation for sure. We've talked a bunch about floppy disks in past episodes. If you want to find them, go look at any kind of past tech episode I've done. You'll find me talking about 5 1/4, 3 1/2, zip, and jazz disks. The context was always the same in those episodes. This is how we handled data storage.
Are you worried about the $20,000 you've got in the commodities market?
Nope.
Are you worried about a corporate takeover?
Nope.
Are you worried about going bald?
Nope, not yet.
Are you worried about a floppy disk losing all your accounts receivable?
No. No. I'm not worried.
If you had 3M diskettes, you wouldn't have to worry. 3M floppies are certified 100% error-free. No floppy's more reliable. 3M diskettes, one less thing to worry about.
And now that's over. There was always something new waiting just behind it that was smaller with a higher capacity, to the point where nobody uses a floppy disk anymore. Period. But then something dawned on me recently. I had this thought that perhaps floppy disks aren't exactly as dead or extinct as I thought they were. As a matter of fact, most of us use the floppy disk quite frequently, just not in exactly the same way. We still use it to save files and data. It's just that it's an icon. You click it. The floppy disk is and has been the save icon. I don't know why that's just dawning on me and that's blowing my mind a little bit, but because I think it was actually that way during the time of floppy disks. So that part never went away. So in a sense, floppy disks never died. Just the physical floppy disk went away. But that save icon, it's been in apps, programs, obviously word processors. It's always there. The difference for me, I guess, is mental. Like, there are now whole generations that click that icon and have never held a floppy disk. They have no idea what it meant to create a document, pull out a floppy disk, put it in the A drive, save it, and then be able to take it with you on the go, and then lose that floppy disk, or have that floppy disk fail. That won't happen anymore. It's just an icon. Wild. You didn't think we were making it out of this episode without mentioning car windows, did you? Because rolling up or rolling down a car window, that's still a phrase, because it's still appropriate. Once again, just not in exactly the same way. Cars still have windows, and now they have an electronic mechanism in the door that rolls them up and down at the touch of a button. Duh. But that's my point. Again, we have reduced this physical action to the touch of a button. We don't physically have to roll our windows up and down preemptively before we drive on a hot summer day. We don't have to then roll up each window individually, one at a time, which required opening each door when we reached our destination. We don't have to do that anymore. It's a safe bet. Any vehicle made after the year 2000 most likely does not have physical window rollers on the doors. But we still say we're going to roll up and down the window. It does still apply. Just some of us remember the struggle that comes with manually doing the job. For example, what if the window roller popped off the door? Well, it was pretty much half broken forever. In order to roll up that window, you had to press the roller back onto the door with one hand and roll it up with the other. So, at least it still semi-functioned. Because when the window roller breaks in modern cars, well, that window is dead until you get it fixed. You might be driving with plastic over your windows. I've seen that plenty. So basically, we just went over some phrases that we still use, even though the action may have changed a bit. But now I kind of want to move on to phrases that are really extinct. Pretty much the phrases that I grew up with that were commonplace, and over the last 30 years or so, I've watched completely drop off the map. They're dead. They're useless. They are irrelevant in today's world. Unless I'm talking to somebody my age or older. And for reference, I'm in my early 40s. You sound like a broken record. You sound like a broken record. You sound like a broken record. I'm not sure when this saying died officially, but I'm guessing early 2000s-ish. Around the introduction of the iPod at the very least, right? And for anybody who doesn't know or doesn't remember, the saying pretty much means that somebody keeps repeating themselves in an annoying manner. Just like a record that was damaged and the needle keeps jumping backward to the previous line to play that little bit of music over and over and over again. And nobody says this anymore. It doesn't apply because nobody has a frame of reference for it. Records were replaced by cassette tapes, kind of, but really the CD, and then the CDs killed off those cassette tapes, and then MP3 players killed off the music CD, and streaming has killed off everything. Except there has been, in like the last 5 to 6 years, a rise in vinyl sales again, which back in the day nobody said vinyl, they called them records. I guess now it's cool to go back and listen to new music that was recorded in really high-tech studios with really good quality, but listen to that music at a really low quality. I don't know. It's fine. Whatever you want to do. Enjoy your records. So maybe, actually, we should expect this phrase of sounding like a broken record to come back one day. Along the same lines of extinct phrases, like broken record, is like nails on a chalkboard. This was a classic roast back in the day. If somebody's singing was like that terrible, or someone had an annoying voice, you would compare that to listening to nails on a chalkboard. Because that was the worst sound imaginable. But anyone under 25 wouldn't even know that because they have no frame of reference for it. Chalkboards were replaced by whiteboards in the late 90s, and screens are currently replacing whiteboards. So, someone dragging their fingernails across a chalkboard, I don't know when the last time that's happened, but if you really wanted to annoy somebody, oof, you could feel it in your bones. That was the worst noise. So, we just learned that the floppy disk has pretty much been reduced to an icon. But this next phrase, it's been boiled down to initials, CC, formerly known as carbon copy. There are at least 2 generations now that have no idea what a carbon copy is or that carbon paper ever actually existed. Before camera phones, before computer scanners, before copy machines. we had carbon paper. If you were filling out a form that would require copies, there was a special paper. It would be pink or yellow, and that paper would be placed under the original so that as you wrote on the original document, the carbon paper below it would be recording your writing. And the smallest or faintest touch would make marks on that carbon paper. So the indents from your handwriting was more than sufficient to make a copy in live time. When you were done filling out your form, you would tear that off, and underneath would be the carbon copy. So that turned into a saying, meaning that something is just like something else. Like you might say that somebody is a carbon copy of their parent or a carbon copy of their sibling. And while I haven't seen anyone use carbon paper in many years or heard anyone bust out carbon copy as a phrase, like in forever, we still use carbon copy every day. Some of us to an annoying extent, by the way. We CC people on emails. CC. Yeah, carbon copy. I'm spelling it out just in case somebody under 40 is listening, because even for me, carbon copy was on its way out when I was a kid in the 80s. So yeah, there are people that only know carbon copy in the context of email. And sometimes I forget carbon copies were a thing. That's how long ago they were used. I'm starting to forget what it was like to use carbon paper. Isn't that crazy? And last for this episode, don't touch that dial. This was a big saying back in the day. Television shows and radio programs used to say this just before commercial breaks, hoping that you wouldn't go channel surfing and find something else to watch. Pretty much, stick with us during the commercial break, we'll be right back. And that was a phrase because everything had a dial back in the day. Phones, TVs, radios, just like carbon copies, I watched the dials disappear too, replaced by buttons. And now we're seeing physical buttons being replaced by touchscreens and touchpads. Any of you guys out there still using dials for anything? Anything? I've come to a realization that I kind of wasn't expecting in this episode. I was looking for popular phrases that changed meanings over the past 3 to 4 decades, or just totally became irrelevant and dead. And I thought it would be interesting to see how or why the change happened, why they died off. It seems obvious now, right? Like, I don't know how I didn't see it at first, but just about all of these phrases or sayings were affected by pretty much the same thing, advancements in technology. Just an interesting observation. Were there any of these phrases that you remember using back in the day or that you still use? Or are there any that I didn't mention that you're screaming right now and you're saying, how could you not say that? You said this, but how could you not say that? Well, let me know. Hit me up on Instagram or email me at busysignalcast@gmail.com. Maybe we'll have to do another episode on this. So really, I mean it, if you still have anything with a dial or know of a place still using carbon paper, snap a pic and tag me on Instagram at busysignalcast. I'll reshare it and I'll see if I can dig up my old rotary phone and I'll share that. And by the way, at this point, there is a massive collection of nostalgic videos to check out on my Instagram. So check those out, once again, at busysignalcast. This past week has been serials based on movies. So have a look and see how many you remember. And while you're there, give a follow so you never miss that daily shot of nostalgia. Oh, and just to let you know, Apple and Spotify also have subscribe buttons, by the way. You can hit those buttons and never miss an episode of The Busy Signal. New episodes every other Friday. If you can, leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. I will read your review or your comments in future episodes. Just like I'm about to do now for the Lego Organizing Mom. She says, I love listening to this podcast. Every episode is so much fun. It never disappoints. The topics, the guests, the host are great. The toys, games, and snack episodes always unlock things I totally forgot existed. Thanks, the Lego Organizing Mom. That's another certified rad review. Also, that's all the time we've got for this episode, so thanks for hanging out. I'll catch you later. Once again, I'd like to say thanks for listening. And as always, you can listen to The Busy Signal everywhere quality podcasts are streamed. Hit the subscribe button to have a new episode delivered directly to your favorite device every other Friday. If you really like the show, leave a 5-star rating or a positive review on Apple and Spotify. That lets everybody else know to come check out what you already think is awesome. You can also head over to Instagram and follow the show at BusySignalCast for even more retrostalgic content. I share a good amount of fun stuff that isn't mentioned on the episodes. While you're there, say hi in the comments. Don't be shy. And until next time, remember, reach out and touch the past.
So why just take snapshots when you can take moving snapshots?